The 1920s in America, a decade of jazz, glamour, and rapid change. But beneath the surface, a dark and dangerous world was taking shape. When the government enforced Prohibition, banning the production and sale of alcohol, they believed it would bring order and morality. Instead, it did the opposite. Welcome to Xfinity Evolution, where history comes alive and legends are reborn. It created a massive underground economy, one filled with crime, violence, and opportunity. And in that chaos, one man rose to the top. Al Capone. Born in Brooklyn in 1899 to Italian immigrant parents, Capone's early life was far from glamorous. He grew up in a tough neighborhood, surrounded by poverty and street violence. School didn't last long for him. He dropped out at a young age after getting into trouble with a teacher. From that point on, the streets became his classroom. It was there he learned the rules of survival, power, loyalty, and fear. As a young man, Capone became associated with organized crime groups, including those led by Johnny Torrio, a key figure who would later shape his future. Torrio saw potential in Capone and took him under his wing, eventually bringing him to Chicago, a city that was about to become the center of America's criminal underworld. Chicago in the 1920s was a battleground. Rival gangs fought for control over illegal businesses, especially alcohol. With Prohibition in full effect, the demand for liquor skyrocketed, and Capone was ready to supply it. Under Torrio's guidance, and later as his successor, Capone built a vast criminal empire based on bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution. But this wasn't just a small operation, it was a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Capone wasn't just a gangster, he was a businessman. He organized his operations with precision, creating networks that stretched across the city and beyond. He owned speakeasies, secret bars hidden from the law, where people from all walks of life came to drink and escape reality. From politicians to celebrities, many were connected to his empire, either directly or indirectly. But Capone's rise to power wasn't clean, it was soaked in blood. Rivalries between gangs often turned deadly, and violence became a daily occurrence. The most chilling example of this brutality was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. On February 14, 1929, 7 members of a rival gang were lined up against the wall and executed in broad daylight. The killers were disguised as police officers, making the scene even more terrifying. While Capone was never officially convicted for this crime, many believed he was the mastermind behind it. This event shocked the nation. It exposed the true scale of organized crime and turned public opinion against Capone. No longer seen as just a powerful figure, he became a symbol of unchecked violence and corruption. The government could no longer ignore him. Yet, despite countless investigations, witnesses, and suspicions, Capone always managed to stay one step ahead. His influence ran deep. Law enforcement officers were bribed, witnesses were intimidated, and evidence mysteriously disappeared. He lived a life of luxury, staying in expensive hotels, wearing tailored suits, and projecting the image of a successful, untouchable man. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. The federal government, determined to bring him down, changed its approach. Instead of trying to prove his involvement in violent crimes, they focused on something much simpler: his finances. Capone had made millions, but he had never paid taxes on his illegal income. In 1931, after a thorough investigation, Capone was finally charged with tax evasion. It was a shocking turn of events. The man who had evaded justice for so long was now facing prison, not for murder or violence, but for failing to pay taxes. During the trial, the evidence was overwhelming. His wealth, his lifestyle, and his hidden earnings all pointed to one undeniable truth. When the verdict was announced, it marked the end of an era. Al Capone was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. The king of Chicago's underworld had fallen, not with a gunshot, but with a courtroom decision. At first, Capone was sent to a standard federal prison, but even there, his influence caused problems. He attempted to bribe guards and maintain control from behind bars. To stop this, authorities transferred him to Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, a place designed to break even the most powerful criminals. Located on an isolated island, Alcatraz was known for its strict rules and inescapable structure. Inside Alcatraz, Capone was just another prisoner. No special treatment. No power. No empire. For the first time in years, he was truly alone. And as time passed, his health began to deteriorate. He suffered from complications of untreated syphilis, which slowly affected his mind and body. The once sharp and commanding figure began to fade. By the time he was released in 1939, Capone was no longer the man he used to be. He returned to Florida, where he lived a quiet and isolated life, far from the power and influence he once held. In 1947, he died at the age of 48, his legacy forever tied to crime, ambition, and downfall. Al Capone's story is more than just the tale of a gangster. It's a reflection of an era, a time when laws created opportunity for crime, and one man took full advantage of it. It's a story of how power can rise quickly and fall even faster. A man who once controlled an entire city ultimately couldn't control his own destiny. And even today, nearly a century later, the legend of Al Capone continues to captivate the world, a reminder that no matter how powerful someone becomes, no one is truly untouchable. If you want to understand how history is unfolding before our eyes, don't miss what comes next. Revisit Xfinity Evolution for deeper insights and powerful stories. Stay informed, stay curious, and join us again on Xfinity Evolution, where the world's biggest events come into focus.